single-celled organisms, i.e., let's take amoeba just as an example. Maybe that was the first organism. In order to evolve to multi-celled organisms, such as, humans with 50 trillion cells, or even, Volvox with, 100 cells.
Yeah.
They would have to either go from 1 to 2, or from 1 to, hundreds or thousands. And would you agree that there are no known 2-celled or 3-celled or 4-celled organisms on the planet?
I think that's the case, and this is an extremely good question, but this is not really challenging the theory.
Okay, so if it's not challenging the theory, so you would say it did not evolve then from 1-celled to 2-celled.
It doesn't seem very likely, but it's possible. I just don't know.
So it went from 1 to a whole bunch.
Yeah, sure. It could have gone from 1 to a big colony cluster that mixed in its DNA and then started differentiating parts of it into other specialized uses.
Are there any colonies of cells today that are all individual single, could live on their own, but work together as a colony, that do anything similar to complex organisms, i.e., does the colony reproduce the colony, or do individual cells reproduce individual cells?
Individual cells in your body reproduce individual cells.
No. One cell for me and one cell for my wife can produce a whole colony called a human baby.
Only a germline cell.
But see, that grows then into not just a colony, that grows into a living human being.
Yeah, that's for a different. That's a totally different thing, though. I'm just saying, like, the cells that are in your body right now are only capable, unless you really modify them, of replicating the same type of cell. Like a liver cell is going to produce a liver cell.
I know, that's pretty amazing, and except for stem cells. Now, they're able to produce quite a variety.
Right, because they're not differentiated.
Right. So, and even those would have, I would think, a difficult time evolving. Okay, so you would agree then that there are no 2-celled organisms on the planet, and none have been discovered in the fossil record?
None that I know of, no.
None that I know of either, and I've asked all kinds of people about this, and nobody knows of any. So you have to jump from 1 to a colony that somehow learned to work together.
That seems likely, yeah.
Okay. And then this colony becomes very different from a colony is a living organism. I mean, it's the jump from a colony of cells to a living organism is massive, orders of magnitude beyond comprehension.
Yes, but that probably wasn't a jump. That was probably a very, very gradual process.
Okay. What evidence do you have for that?
I'll have to look up on that for you. I think this would probably all have taken place in the pre-Cambrian, in the edge of the Cambrian,
right,
where we saw all the arthropods and things.
Which does not exist, obviously, by my thinking. But no such thing as Cambrian or pre-Cambrian or any of that stuff. You're making up the whole story.
What's wrong with defining Cambrian the way that they define it with the index fossils? Why don't you mind that being identified that way, despite the age? I mean,
how would you know a rock is Cambrian?
I'm just saying. What's wrong with defining it to be a layer that has certain index fossils?
I would agree that certain layers appear to have certain types of fossils, but there are other ways to explain that besides, time and chance and evolution.
Yeah, I know. I'm giving you that. I'm saying, like, you can call it whatever age you want. You can say it's all 6,000 years old. Fine. I'm just saying, like, what's wrong with defining it that way, independent of the age, and then saying that's Cambrian, that's Ordovician?
Well, it's not found that way. I mean, it's not always as nice and neat as you would like it to be. I mean, sometimes there are things in wrong. Jonathan, you had the website the other day of the different things found in supposedly Cambrian rock that just don't fit the theory.
Yeah.
Where was that found, at the list of organisms?
It was Don Batten. He had mentioned over 60 different species of woody plants and other types of plants that were down there in Precambrian and Precambrian.
Can you think of anybody besides him or Carl Baugh that I could look up?
Well, he cites several magazines. I'd have to pull up the article. Are you going to give it to you?
Yeah, I actually do want to check into that because, like, that's extremely important.
Now, Don Batten's actually a plant physiologist, and the reason why you're asking for other people is because he's a creationist?
No, it's because he's been so discredited that he doesn't really have any...
He's been so discredited?
Yeah.
Can you give me some examples?
I've read about basically falsifications that he's made, and I don't trust people whenever I read stuff like that.
Well, can you give me an example? You're saying he's been so discredited.
Him talking about the degrees that he's earned.
Don Batten? You don't think he has degrees?
No, it's the nature of his degrees that I was reading about that was very disconcerting.
You're sure? Don Batten?
I'm pretty sure. I could be mistaken.
Oh,
Okay.
there's two Don Pattons, and
Yeah,
there's a Don Batten.
A P and a B, Paul and Ball, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, there are three that all are creationists.
I believe Don Batten got his from secular universities, though.
But see, if someone
Okay.
gets a degree from a secular university, to me, that would tend to discredit them. I would question anything they say because they got a brainwashing, going through their school. In order to get that degree, they had to learn, swallow this junk and puke it back up on the test. So
You couldn't say that about creation science?
well, I know the evolutionists think that the creation schools, that the schools that teach creation are not good, and the creationists think the schools that teach evolution are not good. So neither one's going to trust the other, which is why it goes back to, let's just look at the evidence and look at it from a logical, rational perspective, and forget where the degree comes from.
Exactly. So let's talk about evidence for creation. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay. What is the best evidence you have that the world was created in 6 days?
Well, I would say, I don't know about the best evidence. I can give you a list of them. We've got a break here. Hang on. We'll come back after the break and give you some of those.
Yeah.
All right, folks, welcome back to the final segment of the Creation Science Hour and a Half. This July 15th, the last day of the week, and the middle of the month, and day after my 32nd anniversary, where my wife is in Texas. Oh, well, I'll have to see her in a few days. Well, actually about a week when I get over there, hopefully to preach at a church over there in Houston, Texas. If you want to come, we'd love to have you. We're the folks who believe the Bible is true and evolution theory is dumb, and we take calls at 850-479-DINO, 850-479-DINO, extension 136, or you can instant message us at Dr. Dino Live. And that's AOL instant message. We have Jared on the phone. Wanted to know, what was the question again, Jared? How do I know, what's the best evidence the Earth was created in 6 days?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the best evidence would be, of course, an eyewitness observer, that was, i.e., God, who said he did it that way and preserved a book so we can read it. I happen to believe the Bible is God's preserved word. You probably do not believe that, okay?
I don't. And there's no way for me to verify that one way or the other.
Correct. You're correct. There's no good way to verify that other than, you can look at, prophecies that are made and then fulfilled, and you can look at changed lives, and there are probably 30 or 40 different common sense tests that would say, you could get those from Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell on different ways to show that the Bible is indeed what it claims it is.
I actually have that book.
Yeah, well, you ought to read that one. It's good. Okay. Secondly, I would point out ancient cultures, by the dozens, if not possibly hundreds, teach this same idea that the earth was created by some kind of all-wise, fortunately benevolent creator. But
but they're not talking about 6-day creation.
Many of them are.
Which ones?
Oh, I'd have to look that up. Go to creationism.org. That's Paul Abramson, Berkeley graduate website, who collects these stories and keeps them on his website there, creationism.org. Thirdly, I would point out, strictly from a scientific perspective, symbiosis relationships, I think, are really hard to explain without instantaneous or near instantaneous creation.
Why would those be any harder to explain than any other aspect of biological?
Well, for instance, there are creatures that live in the intestines of the termite.
Right.
The termite cannot live without those little one-celled organisms, and those one-celled organisms are never found outside the intestines of the termite.
Not anymore.
Oh, but they were in the past.
You're right. That's what evolutionary theory would say. It's probably for a similar reason that gluo is broken and why it doesn't matter, because we adapted to a diet that provides vitamin C. So we can't live anymore without vitamin C. You'll get horrible scurvy. But in the past, it didn't matter.
So, but see, right there you are jumping from science to religion when it comes to symbiosis relationships and the termite. You're saying, well, it must have lived in the past because, after all, we know it evolved.
We're basically symbiotic with orange trees.
Okay.
Because we can't live without vitamin C, and they use us to spread their seeds.
Correct. There is
the same sort of, and I just gave you an extremely plausible explanation for how that relationship could have evolved.
But see, that's where you're not seeing that you're jumping from science to religion mid-sentence.
Why is it religious to say that? It sounds like to me
because
totally.
You're giving us a story of how it might have happened. You're not giving me scientific proof that it happened. You're giving me a story, a plausible explanation of how it might have happened, but that's not observable.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, that specific thing is not a falsifiable assertion. But the thing about the gluo being broken in the different with the mutation rates matching with primates, that is smoking gun evidence in my view.
Okay, I know it is. Okay.